For those looking at the thumbnail and thinking,
romance is underrated? The fuck are you on about?
I'm talking about sports romance. It's different because they play sports and hook up instead of just hooking up. Side note, if you somehow clicked on this video without realising, this video is focused on Blue Box, so if you haven't watched it, go away, there are spoilers. I have read and watched a ludicrous amount of romance anime and manga, and there's a lot of the same stuff. Similar gimmicks, slightly different character dynamics, completely different levels of depravity, thank god. This is true for the school life focused series I highlighted here, but other areas like shoujos and office romances have their own set of events and dynamics that repeat per series. And to preface, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, because I continue to read these series despite knowing the general formula basically by heart at this point. However, it does mean I appreciate when a series breaks that mold, or at least introduces a new element of some kind. Enter sports. When a series has some sort of story point that is adjacent but not fully connected to the romance plot, I throw a fucking party. What I mean by this is a storyline that puts the main characters in scenarios outside of their budding relationship, and not just for a few pages or chapters, but for the entire series. I know, it's shocking. They have a life, something outside of being glued to their love interest, doing the same events over and over and over and over and over. Technically, this doesn't have to be sports, but I've chosen sports romance to do a video around for two reasons. The first is that sports is an easy subject to find parallels to romance in. For example, passion is a key theme in both cases. The second is that Blue Box perfectly encapsulates what I like about the split narratives, although I am using that term fairly loosely in this case, and is arguably the best example of it working well. Let's put it on two lines. The top line shows the budding relationship between Taiki and Chinatsu, and includes all the moments and events you'd expect from the romance genre. While the bottom, it shows anything related to the sports aspirations of both of them in badminton and basketball respectively. As you move down the timeline, they sometimes intersect, and something happens to pushes forward the story of their relationship and their personal goals at the same time. But there's also importance in this gap in between the two lines. The separation between their romantic connection and their personal goals means that when those two lines do intersect, you can feel the importance of every event that came before. Right, I think that's enough talk about lines. Let's not get this video age restricted. One of the moments in the series that perfectly demonstrates the potency of this setup is the wish bracelet. If I asked a typical anime audience if they'd ever seen a
oh, now we have a matching set
type scene, I highly doubt I would see a single person with their hand down. And usually the value of this moment is that the matching item, whatever it is being shared between the two love interests. Very rarely is there any meaning outside of that, apart from, I don't know, if it's a good luck charm for a test or something. But in Blue Box, this item that in another series may just be a cute throwaway is actually something that serves a constant symbolic connection between the sports and romance sides of the show. On the romance side, this item is a reminder of their shared goal and the fact that they're both moving in the same direction. While on the sports side, it's a source of motivation and a reason to keep pushing forward. Kind of like when you have that spot in the gym that keeps telling you to do one more rep, you got this, or come on, you can do this. Like, no the I can't, I'm about to pass out. Not only that, but this little band also reminds them of their time limit. Eventually, the band will break, and they'll be forced to look back on what they've accomplished. It's a great moment to start with, it amplifies scenes by carrying so much narrative weight, and it's set up from the very beginning to get an emotional conclusion. Basically, this thing is a writer's narrative wet dream. I can't stress enough how much I love this thing. Moving on, before I start sounding any weirder, split narratives also serve as a way of getting rid of some of the more annoying parts of traditional romance anime. For example, how unbearably and unbelievably long it takes for some of these couples to get together. Chapter after chapter, episode after episode, all we are shown are two people flirting their asses off, and we're expected to believe that these two don't get together for at least a year normally. Sure, from their point of view, the time they spend together may not be the same in correlation with what the reader is shown, but that disconnect means that it looks like these people spend their entire lives together. This is because in these series, the focal point is solely on the main couple, the focal point being anything we are predominantly shown directly on screen. Blue Box having multiple focuses, not just Taiki and Chinatsu, means that the will they won't they element of the story doesn't get boring or repetitive. Like how it could in other romances that focus entirely on one relationship. Taiki and Chinatsu literally live together, and this feeling that can sometimes come up in other shows that they only interact with each other is never present, because the story around them gives them a reason to show off their other relationships and interests. Which leads us to many other tropes that are overused to drag a series out. Blue Box sometimes plays on those tropes, but then uses or discards them in a way that makes sense. Quickfire time. Trope 1. The main couple is about to kiss or have an intimate moment that is interrupted and then never spoken of again. Yes, apparently they developed amnesia. The closest to this is when Taiki gets sick and somehow or other Chinatsu ends up on top of him. Rather than something external interrupting them, Chinatsu herself interrupts the moment, and it's later a catalyst for her uncertainty over getting closer to Taiki. It actually has a reason for existing outside of simply baiting the audience into getting their hopes up, and it gets a proper resolution with Chinatsu admitting she made a mistake in pulling away from their relationship. Trope 2. Unpopular kid gets the most popular girl. Taiki's not exactly bottom of the barrel, but when you compare him to Chinatsu and Hina's almost deific level of popularity, he might as well be. While a lot of series might play into the whole only I know how great he is dynamic, Blue Box instead builds Taiki up until it's not weird for him to be standing right next to them. With all three of them being known for their sporting ability, having him improve to meet their skill level creates an apt comparison with how close they are on a personal level. Trope 3, love triangles, yay. Yeah, so Blue Box quite obviously has a love triangle. It's literally one of the biggest plot points. However, Blue Box does things a little differently to make this less of an exercise in mental endurance. Way one is Taiki knows who he wants to pursue and makes that quite clear to everybody. And the other way is that most love triangles are only resolved when one of them wins, which can lead to the MC looking flaky and non-committal. Taiki is neither of those things. He makes sure to properly turn down Hina when he realizes that keeping her hanging is doing both her and himself a disservice. Maybe you're thinking right now that all of these points I'm bringing up sound like they can just be solved with decent writing. The sports side of things that I've been harping on about is completely irrelevant. But in the case of Blue Box and other series that use a similar formula, that second story focus is key to anything that happens on either side of those lines I mentioned earlier. If I were to sum up the effect it has, it would be that it gives the author time to develop each side of the line without needing to resort to the aforementioned tropes to stretch out the story. So having multiple story prospects is a good thing, great, but why is sports an optimal theme for this second narrative line? I'm gonna get pretty nerdy here for a sec. Like I mentioned toward the start of the video, sports and romance feature several similarities, passion being perhaps the biggest link. These two things are massive in people's lives to the point where either can be the sole thing that people dedicate themselves to. Creating a family and finding a family. Suffering the heartbreak of losing at the final hurdle and the pain of rejection despite hoping for a positive outcome. Learning how to improve as a partner and learning how to improve as a teammate. There are so many ways in which these two themes can overlap and play into each other. In writing, the main goal is to make people care, whether it be the characters you write, the story you're telling, or the message you're trying to relay. Romance is such a popular genre because it's something that almost everyone experiences, and it's easy to draw out emotions by using things people relate to or yearn for. And while perhaps not quite on the same level, sports is the same. If the romantic side of things isn't going so great for the characters, then balancing it out with success in sports can create an interesting dynamic. Or alternatively, you can just pile misery on the reader by having hard times in both, and then overload it in the other way for a bigger payoff. When you have two very strong emotive themes serving as the foundation for your story, it makes the entire process easier for the writer, as well as making it easier to enjoy for the reader. But there's no reason for me to keep blabbering, you can see it in action in Blue Box. Chinatsu gets slapped in the face with those scales when she loses at Nationals and then comes back to find that Hina has told Taiki that she likes him. Her wish bracelet, one of her connections to Taiki, also breaks, meaning that not only has her wish not come true, but from a symbolic point of view, her connection to Taiki has gotten weaker. After experiencing a defeat she feels responsible for, hearing that Hina is advancing in the romance department has her thinking, oh, am I going to lose here as well? And remember, this is after she's pushed him away, so if she did in fact lose, then like that basketball game, it would feel as if she was at fault for losing despite having a massive chance to win. All of this cultivates into one of my favourite scenes from Blue Box, Chi's birthday. It re-establishes her unique relationship with Taiki as roommates with potential. It clears up not just her feelings that space is necessary between them, but also the misunderstanding about the fireworks festival earlier in the season.
See, writers? You can have characters with communication skills beyond kindergarten.
And finally, it alleviates the pressure of those scales tipping increasingly towards the negative as Chinatsu gets relief from her loss and her worries about losing Taiki's support. And this isn't the only example, obviously. Hina's dissatisfaction with being third in the country perfectly overlaps with that same dissatisfaction with sharing almost the same position in Taiki's eyes, becoming the motivation behind her confession. And as for Taiki, he's kinda simple. See Chinatsu, good badminton. Sad about Chinatsu, bad badminton. Bad badminton, bad. That's really hard to say. He's the main character. More often than not, they seem to have the most simple motivations in their series. Anyway, that's why sports romance has become one of my favourite things to read. It's been almost a year since I last uploaded. So my main medium is writing, and I've really been struggling with adapting to a video format. But I think I've figured out the direction I want to go, so hopefully the next video doesn't take 8 fucking months. As for that next video, it's done. The vibe could not be more different. Anyway, that'll totally be out in a few weeks. Please like and subscribe.